Welcome to the Steroids Podcast with your host, Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Boom! Boom! Let's get started here. The Steroids Podcast is brought to you by Ultimate Guide to Roids, 109-page ebook by Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Now, for the first time in bodybuilding history, you have someone with no corporate interests and no obligation to please anyone, not walking on eggshells to not offend. Ultimate Guide to Roids gives you the information, the whole truth, not a full truth and a half truth, full truth. Ultimate Guide to Roids gives you the keys to the Lamborghini, gives you the information, and lets you decide what to do with it. It's a crime this information has been suppressed this long. Now let's get on with the podcast.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Steroids Podcast. Your host, Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. As always, I wanted to take a minute and thank you listeners for all of your comments that you've been sending in and all of your questions that you've been sending in and all you guys who are listening. It's been a lot of great feedback from you guys about the show, and it really makes me feel like, like I'm doing what I set out to do by making this when I get that kind of feedback from you guys, because some of you guys have sent out really sincere comments about, or really sincere messages to me about, the knowledge you've gained from listening to the show and how it's really benefited you in what you were doing and helped you solve problems that you had while using gear, etc., or lack of knowledge that you wished to have but felt confusion on. So, that really means a lot to me that you guys have felt that way. So, thankful for the listeners. Thankful for the listeners on the show. And now let's get on with the show. Let's get on with the questions, shall we? First question is from Anthony. Yo, Dan, what do you think keto diet and metformin together? What do you think, huh? I think it's a good thing, because metformin, it stabilizes your blood sugar. Like we talked about on the last episode of the podcast episode 11, metformin, it doesn't give you hypoglycemia, even though it does sensitize your muscles to insulin. It doesn't give you like an insulin shock or hypoglycemia the way like injectable insulin does that, because it's just a sensitizing agent. And in my experience, it like anecdotally in general, and in my experience, it stabilizes blood sugar and makes you not feel so many highs and lows, actually, because highs and lows in energy happen when you eat, especially if you're eating carbohydrates. If you're just eating a ketogenic diet, actually, your entire life has less highs and lows. You're more stable and just reliable and the same all the time. It's a great diet. The ketogenic diet, or like, just think of it this way, just eating meat or like animal products only. You know what? That is such a good diet for like having a powerful mind, for having your mind be on fire, for having you be able to think of new ideas and be creative and have power throughout the day, mental energy without the need for stimulants and caffeine. Man, the ketogenic diet is amazing for that. Or as I say, just eating meat, basically. Just eat meat. It is a great diet. It is a great lifestyle diet. And you know what? Metformin makes the liver not produce as much blood sugar out of protein. So I'm sure that you guys have heard people say the term gluconeogenesis. What that means is the liver does this process where it gets the protein, some of the protein in your blood, and it transforms it into a carbohydrate. It does chemical reactions on the protein that you eat, and then it's in your bloodstream. It does some chemical reactions on them, and those chemical reactions cause the protein to become a carbohydrate, and it stores it in your liver, called liver glycogen. So in order to be in ketosis, you can't have a lot of sugar in your blood, because you got to be running on ketones, not sugar, not well, you still have blood glucose, but yeah, you're going to be running on ketones. So when you have the liver producing less glucose because of taking metformin, it helps you get into ketosis quicker and stay in ketosis. So metformin helps quite a lot with ketosis. But one thing that you are going to have to watch out for is that the first 2 weeks of metformin are Diareha City. So diarrhea and farting. And that's the way it is, because what's happening is your digestive system, the bacteria in there are adjusting to a different environment, a metformin environment. And it takes some time for them to adjust. Let's just say that. So a lot of farting and diarrhea for the first 2 weeks, and then it gets better over week 3, and then it's back to normal by week 4. The other thing with metformin is there's a metformin smell associated with your poop and your urine, your pee. And the metformin smell is in every shit or piss that you do. You go, oh my God, there's some metformin. I smell metformin. Yeah, I'm not pulling your leg. This is a thing. But thank God it doesn't come through your sweat or your body odor or your saliva or anything else. It only comes out through your shit and your urine. So thank God. There's no danger. There's no danger. You're not going to be walking around smelling like metformin while you're using metformin. So metformin, it's a good diet aid, and it's also something that people use to be able to eat junk food. So it makes you absorb about 30% less of the calories that you eat. So you can eat like huge amounts of food, and some of it just kind of goes straight through you, and you just like eat it and then like shit it out. So that's like a tool that is used by some people to like have a more relaxed diet, metformin, because you can eat more junk food if you use that. And the usual dosages are like 1,000 milligrams per day to 2,000 milligrams per day. And in my experience, 2,000 milligrams per day is the sweet spot. Like, that's the dosage. It's like way better than 1,000 milligrams per day. And but 1,000 milligrams per day definitely works. But 2,000 milligrams per day, if you take 1,000 milligrams in the morning and 1,000 milligrams at night, that shit, it seriously works. It has a strong effect, like on getting pumped and like having a really pumped up, full looking physique, where you have that really full muscles just like freaking bursting from within look. It helps a lot with that. So it's a powerful agent used at 2,000 milligrams per day. All right, next question is from Gifford. What is the key to building up more and more muscle tissue that sticks with you cycle after cycle? What is the key to holding on to the muscle tissue you build? Okay, so for steroid users, sometimes they fall into this trap of liking the way that they look when they're on cycle and liking to like pump up in the gym or something and do a bunch of like this light volume work. Man, that muscle, it just doesn't work as well as doing it like the Dorian Yates method. It's all about the Dorian Yates method, where you do a couple sets to like maximum freaking intensity, you know? Like you do the weights under complete control on the negative, and then you do the positive portion where you push it up. You do that at the biggest speed that you can do it. You push it as hard as you can, and then you lower the weight on the eccentric, the stretching portion. You do that slow and under control, where you can stop it at any time if you wanted to. And you do that like heavy and get stronger. You know, even the IFBB pros that are really big and they don't lift heavy, they are like really strong. Like they can lift really heavy weights if they want to. This is just a fact, is that big guys are strong guys. And if you want to be like really big, you got to make sure, and you want to like build up muscle mass that sticks with you cycle after cycle, you got to make sure that you are getting like damn strong. So you got to be making sure that when you're doing exercises, like you're always going for like the 100-pound dumbbells, or you've always got like, you know, the 100-pound dumbbells or above, you know, or like you always have like 2 plates loaded on each side or more of the barbells when you're doing exercises, or 3 plates or something like that, you know, when you're doing exercises. You know, like things like bench press and bent over rows and things like that. You got to be handling weights like that in order to be getting really big. And if you're taking a lot of steroids and you're not like happy with your progress over time, and you're feeling like, I'm taking performance enhancing drugs, but I'm not getting like as big and strong as I think I should be getting, it's possible that, and I would say probable, that this could be a huge possibility that this is what's going on for you. Is that a lot of guys, you know, they're saying I'm taking a lot of roids, but then you gotta say, well, how much weights are you lifting? And if those weights are, you know, if they're doing a lot of exercises like using less than 100-pound dumbbells, you know, on those heavy duty compound exercises, or, you know, using less than 2 or 3 plates, you know, 3 plates or 2 plates ever, you know, except for the super light warm-ups, but usually 3 plates or 2 plates ever, you know, not using lighter than that on like compound exercises with barbells. So I'm talking about, you know, 45-pound plates or 20-kilogram plates on each side of the bar. They've got to be lifting those kinds of weights, and that's got to be the kind of weights, you know, or more that they've always got on the bar in the gym. And if you can't do that, you like, if you tried, if, you know, you don't actually have to be doing those weights. Well, you kind of do actually, but but let's just put it at this. If you can be doing whatever you're doing and be big, okay? But if you're going to be really big, you could do those kinds of weights if you tried. Maybe you're not necessarily training that way right now, but if you tried, you know you could do those weights with good form, under complete control, and then accelerating the weight when you push it away from you, and then during the stretching portion of the movement, keeping all the tension on your muscles and lowering it under complete control where you could stop at it anytime if you wanted to. If you can do those things with those weights that I said, you're going to be pretty big. So if you're taking steroids and you're wondering, why am I not as big as I think I should be? Well, take a look at those lifting numbers in the gym and ask yourself, are those what I'm doing? Are those the weights that I'm normally using? Because guys who are really big, and you know, they are very strong also, if they wanted to, they can lift weights like that. And that's just the raw truth. You know, maybe they're not training like that right now, but if they tried, they could do those kinds of weights. You know, they're not ever using less than 2 plates on either side of the bar on compound exercises on their with the barbell, and they're usually using, like, you know, 3 plates or more on compound exercises on each side of the bar. And when they're doing compound exercises with dumbbells, they're not really reaching, like, for dumbbells less than like 100 pounds per hand for the most part. Like, you know, that's just a fact. So that can be the reason that you want to focus on that. And when you're doing your steroid cycles, you want to make sure that you are getting stronger on a regular basis if you're trying to get bigger. Because if you want to have stacking mass over time, and mass that isn't just like blowing up on drugs and coming off and looking the same afterwards, then you have got to be pushing up your lifting numbers in the gym over time. And man, that is like the number one piece of advice that I can give you in progressing in bodybuilding. It's so important. All right, so the next question is from Airboy. Can you build muscle on a cut, such as testosterone and primobolan, without trenbolone? I hear so much conflicting info. Also, has your personality permanently changed since advanced supplementation? I'm a lot less aggressive now after testosterone. Unless I get Winnie rage. I'm a little confused on that last bit, but yeah, you know, if you're using a lot of testosterone and primobolan, you know, such as like 1,000 milligrams of each per week, it will have a recompositioning effect on you. So if you mean like, can you build muscle on a cut without trenbolone? Yeah, most guys could go on 1,000 milligrams of testosterone and 1,000 milligrams of primobolan per week, and just eat like a bro diet, like beef and rice, or, you know, chicken and rice, turkey and rice, potato, oatmeal, those kinds of things. You know, whenever they're hungry, just eat those foods, those natural foods that are either eating animals or eating food, you know, that grows from the ground, or products that come from animals, you know, eating those foods, those food groups, and you get on 1,000 milligrams of testosterone a week and 1,000 milligrams of primobolan per week. Unless you're like freaking, like way bigger, you know, that you probably wouldn't, you know, you'd be huge, you know. A regular guy who is a bodybuilder, a regular steroid user, could use those dosages and then build muscle on primobolan and lose fat at the same time on primobolan and testosterone. So it's a very strong drug. And it works even better when stacked with an oral in there too, like putting 50 milligrams of Anadrol or 100 milligrams of Anadrol along with that. Or putting like 100 milligrams or 50 milligrams of Anavar along with it, or the same dosages of Winstrol, or like 20 milligrams of Superdrol per day along with it, or actually 30 milligrams is probably the best dosage per day of Superdrol for like toxicity versus effect, enormous effect. You know, it would be a very effective recompositioning cycle. And you know what? Then if you added 2 IUs of pharmaceutical grade human growth hormone in there, well, now we're talking about like a serious recompositioning cycle. Eating that bro diet along with doing those things. Oh, and now here's one more thing. Now you throw in 40 to 80 milligrams of Clenbuterol per day. And here's another thing. You go for a 10-minute walk after every meal you eat. And then you eat whenever you're hungry, those bro diet foods, and you eat as much as you want, and you take, stack like this. Yeah, you're going to be freaking recompositioning without Trenbolone. Pretty much like no matter what level of bodybuilder that you're at. Like this is, you can definitely recomposition without Trenbolone. Okay, next question is from Thanos. Would you add human growth hormone and metformin on a bulking off-season cycle if your goal was to stay lean while adding mass? Yeah, if you wanted to eat like junk food a lot when you were trying to stay lean and add mass at the same time, because it would like block some of that junk food from being absorbed. Yeah. And in the last question by Airboy too, I wanted to answer his question about, has your personality changed since advanced supplementation? I don't know. I've gotten older. I started using PEDs when I was 25, and I'm 30 now, and obviously my personality has changed a lot. Or maybe I was 24. I can't remember. I might have been 24. So my personality has changed a lot during that time, but I've really grown up because, you guys that are older, there's a lot of really cool older guys too that are from 35 to 55, 60 years old age group that listen to this. Those guys have got a lot of great experience to share too. And they know that, when you're aging from 25 to 30, your personality is developing big time. So, well, I've had, high testosterone levels influence me during that time, but the temperament that I was born with, it definitely shows today. That has never changed. So, the way I am today and the things that I do are predictable if somebody would have known me when I was a baby. So I'm exactly the same in those ways, but for example, though, my mom says that she thinks some things are different, like subtle things like body language, stuff like that. Okay. So it does have an effect on you where people can tell by the way that you act, that something's a little different, but it definitely doesn't change who you are at all. And then obviously it makes you a little bit more emotional, believe it or not, because your emotions are a little bit more spiky, or they're more highs and lows a little bit, yeah, or there's more peaks to them, because when you're messing with your hormones or you got fluctuating hormone levels, it's the same as women on birth control, it causes problems for them sometimes. So that's why I tell guys that aren't really serious, that they know that this is what they need to do to, live the kind of life that they want to have. If they're just messing around, probably just stay away from steroids and performance enhancing drugs. unless they just wanted to do like one cycle or something to just figure out what it was all about, and then PCT and then know what that was all about, then whatever. But other than that, I think that it's better to just stay away from performance enhancing drugs if you're not like positive that, you know, this is what is necessary to, you know, do the things in life that you want to do, because it's a hassle. That's like the best word for it. It's a hassle. It's a hassle. All right, next question. Shaq, a question for a podcast. Is there a minimum amount of tren you could run without Caber or pramipexole or Cabergoline? So this is the thing with Trenbolone, is it comes from progesterone, okay, which is a female steroid. You know, the female steroids and testosterone, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, they all come from the cholesterol molecule. So they're all very related, and they can, like, you know, testosterone can be transformed into estrogen and stuff like that, okay? So even though Trenbolone comes when they make it, like in a laboratory, even though it comes from progesterone, it's still very close. It's like very related to testosterone at the same time, okay? You know, it's probably like the end product is probably, you know, Trenbolone is more related to testosterone than it is progesterone. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that Trenbolone is a hormone that actually exerts like progestagenic effects at the receptor. It like binds to the progesterone receptor, and it also does that thing with prolactin all by itself, where it rises the prolactin levels, and you need Cabergoline. That's from the actual Trenbolone. It's not from like the estrogen it produces or the prolactin it produces or the progesterone it produces. That's from the actual Trenbolone molecule. It just stimulates basically hella receptors, hormonal receptors. It gets in there to those hormones, and it's just like, I'm stimulating you all, bitches. It's a hella strong hormone. That's what's up. Do you hear this California accent? This is my last month in California, and so I'm saying all these California words to you guys. I grew up here in California, and so we say hella shit down here. Hella shit. So, is there a minimum amount of tren you could run without Caber or Prami? This is the way it works, okay? Is that if you have any Trenbolone in your system, it starts doing weird stuff with the if you're not having Cabergoline or pramipexole running, it starts making you feel weird, really emotionally feel like really weird. And then also it has sexual dysfunction effects, and that starts as soon as you put any in you, okay? And then like 50 milligrams every other day is less than 300 milligrams per day. 50 milligrams every other day is less of these sexual side effects and mental side effects than 100 milligrams every other day. Okay? And as you increase the dosage from there, it just gets more and more intense until you like chemically castrate yourself while you're using it. And that usually happens for people somewhere between 700 milligrams per week of Trenbolone or 1400 milligrams per week of Trenbolone, or 2100 milligrams per week of Trenbolone. Believe it or not, guys, there are people that fill up 3cc syringes of Trenbolone and shoot them every day, okay, of Trenbolone acetate. When you see with your eyes, okay, your eyes do not deceive you. This is with fake natties, and this is also with, complete freaks, like huge freaks that you look at them and you're like, what the hell am I looking at, okay? Your eyes do not deceive you. Trust your eyes. They do these things. You think this is insane. How could they be doing drugs like that? 3 cc's per day. I'll tell you what, you put that freaking needle in the syringe or in the vial and you pull it back to 3 cc's and you put it in you, okay? That's how you can do it. And there are crazy motherfuckers out there who do crazy shit, okay? And when you see this stuff that is like, what the hell am I looking at? When you see bodies like that, that is because of what the hell drug use. And that's just the way it is. Your eyes do not deceive you. I don't have to argue why. You already know why. You know deep down when you see that what's going on. All right, so that's Trenbolone. Next question. Your take on... Oh, this is from ND. Your take on MENT, Trestolone. Is it worth using? It has a really high anabolic to androgenic ratio, higher than Tren. Looks better than testosterone to me. Yeah, so this is a hormone that was being researched in the 90s for HRT, hormone replacement therapy, for men to like take this, you know, because birth control is estrogen and progesterone. That's how they make women infertile. Well, they're thinking, but it's not like most birth control pills aren't actually estrogen and progesterone, though. They're steroids, like estrogenic, progestagenic steroids that are alterations of the estrogen and progesterone molecule, making little changes to it to make it have certain effects that are more pronounced in certain areas of their hormonal system. The same that anabolic steroids are like testosterone molecules usually, you know, or dihydrotestosterone molecules, and they're altered a little bit to express or try to express certain effects and have certain effects and repress others. That's the same way that the birth control, like tablets or birth control injection, is with the estrogen and progesterone. So with the Trestolone, that's what they're thinking of doing for the men, to make them infertile, like a birth control would be Trestolone. And so they were researching this drug that has like a really potent infertility effect. And it also has a super strong anabolic effect. And it's true. This is a new drug that, you know, was just being researched in the 90s for human use. It never came out. It's never been to market. But, you know, the Chinese got a hold of the chemical formula for it and started producing it. And so now it's on the open market, Trestolone, MENT. And yeah, it's not a lie. It is like super strong. It's like Trenbolone in the way that it can build muscle. I haven't used it, but I've been around people that were on it. I've been around friends that were on it, and I watched them use it. I watched them take the injections and use it. And it had the effect. It had the effect of as strong as Trenbolone in the way that it could change their bodies. So that was pretty amazing. But the thing is that they were using it at dosages of 50 to 100 milligrams per day to have those effects. And they, they were using it at 50 to 100 milligrams per day. So it had to be at the same dosages as Trenbolone, like normal dosages, to get it to work like that. And they'd take a little bit of testosterone alongside the Trestolone. He also asks, do you think IGF-1 LR3 is worth taking in replacement of human growth hormone? Okay, IGF-1 LR3, like from peptide companies and stuff like that, it works, okay? Like, if you have a cut or something and you're taking that, you can see it work because the healing is crazy fast. This stuff is way more likely to cause like belly distension and like hypoglycemia and side effects than human growth hormone, though. So it does work, but I just don't think it's a good thing to be taking. I mean, I don't take it because I have taken it just for an experiment, taking a couple vials for an experiment. And I don't like it. I only like pharmaceutical grade human growth hormone. Next question. Valentin. Can you cruise on Dbol only, like 10 to 20 milligrams a day for 2 months? Adding Proviron to this, maybe. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. 8 weeks of 10 to 20 milligrams Dbol per day? Yeah, absolutely. This stuff used to be prescribed for hormone replacement therapy by doctors in the 50s and 60s and 70s, like even the 80s, before the Steroid Control Act in America, when they made steroids illegal, and then America talked to the other governments and had them make them illegal too. Except for Eastern, everything in the West was like, steroids. That was America's fault. And when that happened, the doctors had to stop prescribing them, a lot of them, for the most part, for hormone replacement therapy. You know, it's made a comeback recently, and more doctors have been doing it, prescribing more steroids for hormone replacement therapies, more variety, not just testosterone, bioidentical testosterone. But, you know, before the 1990s, a lot of these steroids used to be prescribed by doctors for hormone replacement therapies at various dosages, and Dianabol at 10 to 15 milligrams per day was one of those, that the doctors would just prescribe it instead of testosterone at 10 to 15 milligrams per day of Dianabol, and have them doing that basically indefinitely. And I don't know of their exact protocols with each patient, so take that for what it's worth. This is not medical advice, and I'm not a doctor. So I'm just relaying to you what I have seen them report, what I have seen those physicians report in their published works. So Proviron will always increase your sex drive, and the Dbol creates the estradiol through aromatization when it interacts with the aromatase enzyme that is in you, and creates the estrogen. So it gives you all you need. You also need to have Nolvadex or Arimidex with you to prevent side effects on that cycle. Valentin also asks, is hypothalamic pituitary testicular axis damage real? So that's usually abbreviated HPTA, and that's the system that controls your fertility. Okay? And he says, can you permanently shut down your natural production of testosterone? I am now on testosterone because I can't recover no matter what PCT protocol I use post-cycle therapy. I just crash. Any tips for going natty again? Yeah, usually it's high dosages of HCG for a long time, like anywhere from 3,000 IU to 5,000 IU per week, and doing that from like 3 months to 6 months. There's studies online showing guys, doctors have published things that they've done to try and help guys heal from being hypogonadal from using steroids, guys that had long-term shutdown. This is the same kind of stuff that they do with women who are trying to get pregnant. You know, this is the guys who go into fertility clinics. Sometimes the doctors post case studies, and these can be found online, and you can read them about hypogonadal, fixing hypogonadism in men who have used anabolic steroids if it's a really hard case and they went in and saw a doctor about it. And the doctors that have had the most success, this is again me relaying the results of their studies to you, is they prescribed their patients from 3,000 to 5,000 to 10,000 IU per week of HCG from periods of 3 to 6 months in length. And, you know, even the most severe cases using those protocols cured those guys that otherwise for years had been shut down, you know, had hypogonadism where they weren't producing testosterone or sperm for years because of steroid abuse. So, and then, you know, we have guys like Ronnie Coleman and Dave Palumbo. They've got kids. You know, most pro bodybuilders have kids. So, no matter how infertile you are, your testicles haven't been destroyed. They're just really, really in hibernation mode. And, if you go see a doctor, they're probably going to put you on some kind of protocol like this if they know what they're doing. Because you got to see a specialist, not a general practitioner. So this is what's been shown to work. All right. On to the next question of the Steroids podcast, guys. From steroidspodcast.com. www.steroidspodcast.com, baby. A gold mine of performance-enhancing drugs information. If you stumble upon the website steroidspodcast.com, you will have stumbled into the California gold rush in 1848, the same time that James Marshall discovered gold in Coloma, California, north of San Francisco. He discovered gold in 1848 and started the gold rush. And basically that's what's happening right now with you early viewers of the Steroids podcast. You guys, you're the first ones that are getting to hear all this information that has never been available before to the public. So you guys are like the first guys right after James Marshall discovered gold in Coloma, California, up there north of San Francisco in 1848. Those first guys were down there. And you know what? Some Mormons were down there too. And some of those Mormons were the first ones in on the gold rush. And you guys are like them. You guys are like them Mormons. Some of the first in on the gold rush. Of this never before released information from www.steroidspodcast.com. A gold mine of performance enhancing drugs information. All right. Confession. I popped 40 micrograms of Clenbuterol. Have you heard my voice shake a little bit during this podcast? Yeah. Side effects. Next question. Matt asks, would gear help increase tendon size and area, etc., for us small wrist fellas? Or are we forever stuck with small wrists, small forearms, small arms? Yeah, anabolic steroids slowly over time help increase the size and strength of your tendons. And so your tendons and ligaments are the connective tissue that holds your bones together and holds your muscles onto your bones. So the ligaments hold the bones together, and then the tendons hold the muscles onto the bones. And that tissue can increase and become stronger, and does with weightlifting and with performance-enhancing drug use, steroids, and especially human growth hormone. That tissue becomes more dense, and actually so does your bones themselves. Your bones actually get more dense, and you don't even need performance-enhancing drugs for these effects to happen. You can just straight start weightlifting. There's been a lot of research done on this, and old people that get osteoporosis, or for old people also preventing osteoporosis, since weightlifting itself, or resistance training is how they phrase it and how they test it, increases the density of the bones and decreases the bones breaking down and the degeneration of bones in people that are getting osteoporosis. So yeah, weightlifting and anabolic use and human growth hormone use do increase the tendons and ligaments and bones density, as well as your muscles. They do everything. They grow everything. They grow everything. Trust me. If you get a lot bigger, they're growing your heart too, dude. That's just what happens. your heart has the ability to grow and shrink. Anybody? You know what? People talk about left ventricular hypertrophy on anabolic steroids, okay? All right. If you use steroids and you're planning on getting pretty big, or if you get fat and you get like really huge, you know, the same as you would be if you were a bodybuilder. Like for me, I'm exactly 5'9" without shoes on, okay? So before I started lifting weights, just when I was a normal, full-grown man, when I was 17, I'm still a boy, of course, but I was, full-grown at that point, had my full skeleton and everything. You know, I was only 145 pounds, and I wasn't like a naturally skinny guy. I was just a normal guy. So 5'9", exactly, with no shoes, no tiptoes, you know, just completely exactly 5'9", and 145 pounds. That was my natural weight, like living an athletic lifestyle, doing a lot of skateboarding, and I played tackle football, but I didn't lift weights. And so now at the, like, you know, I've weighed up to 240 pounds now since I've been weightlifting and then using anabolics. I'm 30 years old now, so that's been 14 years. And so that's a 95-pound increase in my body weight since starting bodybuilding. So, you know, if I didn't think that my heart grew to support that bigger body, you know, that would be completely illogical. Of course, my heart has grown to support that body. So that's what happens to athletes. Okay, guys, when you do like super hard resistance training, or when you do like a lot of endurance training, or you do performance enhancing drugs, or you gain a lot of body weight, it grows everything. Like your entire body grows, like even your digestive system grows. The organs of it, they grow to support the bigger body. Like your whole body gets bigger and smaller together. So that's the reality on, like, you know, worrying about like, is my heart going to grow, or am I going to get left ventricular hypertrophy from steroid use? Well, if you're like a serious athlete who's like lifting hard, like or exercising, like endurance training really hard, any kind of serious athletics, and you're doing that for an extended period of time, meaning decades, yeah, your heart changes. That's just the facts, okay? And, you know, whether you use steroids or not, or whether you use performance-enhancing drugs or not, that's happening. So if you do dramatic things like gaining 100 pounds from using performance-enhancing drugs and developing some kind of huge body, you know what? If you don't think that your heart is growing, you know, that's completely unrealistic. That's completely unrealistic. Okay? So be aware of what you're doing. Be aware of what you're doing, young one. Young one. The old ones, they're aware of what they're doing. You know what? That's the funny thing with the older guys, and is a lot of the older guys, they're like, hey, you know, I got nothing to lose, and they're totally aware of what they're doing, and they're like doing it. Maybe you could call it responsible abuse of performance enhancing drugs, because they're fully aware of the health effects. And but then you got these younger guys who, you know, they're totally not aware, and it's not like totally like informed at all. It's totally uninformed abuse, and just straight up abuse by the younger guys, not knowing what the possible side effects could be, and not caring to know. But those older guys, a lot of you guys would be surprised. There's a lot of guys who are over 50 years old who use high dosage anabolics, and obviously these guys know what it takes. And because if you look at your gym, if you go to a gym with big bodybuilders at it, a lot of times the guys who are really big, like seriously huge, like they have slabs of dense muscle all over their body, most of the time they're over 30 years old. Sometimes no. But you know what? For some reason, bodybuilders tend to peak later than other sports. They keep getting bigger later into their lives compared to, most athletes kind of peter out around 30 years old. That's usually when bodybuilders start heading into their prime years. And then there's some of these guys that are over 50 or around 60 years old, and they're running like something like 1,000 milligrams of testosterone, 1,000 milligrams of trenbolone, 10 per week, and maybe 10 IUs of human growth hormone per day, and they're doing insulin with that, and maybe metformin at the same time, and maybe some thyroid hormone too. And these guys will be like 50 or 60 years old, and they'll I'll ask these guys, oh, well, what's your goal? What makes you want to do that? And it'll be something like, well, because I want to achieve my childhood dream, or like my teen, when I was a teenager or a young man in like my 20s or something, I had this dream of like looking like Steve Reeves or looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And, now I'm in this later part of my life, and I'm thinking like, what do I want to do to like enjoy this like twilight of my life? And so they think, okay, I'm going to put my focus into that, achieving that dream from when I was a younger guy. And so then that a lot of times is the reasoning for these guys. They are doing what you have to do to get really huge like that. But that is sometimes the reason for these guys running the high dosages that are older like that, because some guys assume that only young guys run high dosages, and that's totally not true. You guys have to know that usually this is pretty much like a hard rule. This is very unusual. If guys who are really big, like the guys who are like, they look like bodybuilders. Like they don't just look like a guy who's using a little bit of steroids. They look like bodybuilders. They have the shape and look of a bodybuilder. When you see them, you think that's a bodybuilder. That kind of guy in your gym. They're usually always using somewhere between 1.5 grams and 2.5 grams gear combined. Like if you combine all of their different testosterone and steroids together, the total dosage when they're on cycle would be somewhere between like 1.5 grams added up, 1,500 milligrams added up all together, or up to like 2,500 milligrams per week. That's like average. And it can go all the way up to like somewhere between like 3,500 milligrams up to like 4,500 or 5,000 milligrams per week. That would be a range. Those would be outliers, though. Those really high dosages that I just now said, those are outliers. So that's not common, but it happens. These are dosages that are used by people in gyms around the world for certain levels of insane development that you see. It's not entirely uncommon to see this, or for some guy that you may see to be using this, who's benching 4 plates for reps, things like that, okay? To be using anywhere from up to 3,500 milligrams up to like 4,500 milligrams or so of total combined dosages of, testosterone, deca, trenbolone, equipoise, dianabol, anadrol, whatever per week. If you add it all up together, usually it's somewhere from 1,500 to 2,500 milligrams per week. But there are outliers that are up to like 3,500 milligrams to 4,000 500 or so. So I'm just telling you guys the general spectrum of what you see and what you can think of when you see bodybuilders. When you see bodybuilders, these are the general dosages, because people wonder, what are people using? How much do people use? Or I wonder how much the biggest guy, if you've seen somebody who's really big before, but you don't usually see people. These are the general ranges. These are the general ranges that I'm telling you about. Some guys think they're going to become like a bodybuilder on like 500 milligrams of testosterone and like, per week, 500 milligrams of testosterone per week and 50 milligrams of Trenbolone every other day. And you know what? That's never going to get you like hella huge and without, like you could get big on it. You could get big on it, okay? If you had genetics for being huge already and you just ate like a freaking fiend, like a lot of junk food, but you wouldn't be able to, it would be more of a power lifter type of thing if you were doing that kind of thing. It would be more of a power lifter type of thing. That will never be enough. That will never be enough gear to really do the bodybuilder thing. If you think that that's going to be something that's going to get you a really big, thick, dense, voluminous, muscle fiber tissue look and bodybuilder look. Bodybuilders just have a signature look where someone is one and when someone is not one. It's not when you just see the person and you see basically the outline of their body, like what the shadow would look like or the silhouette, it just instantly, you just know that's a bodybuilder. And you either got it or you don't, okay? So people have been asking like about, what do these aesthetics guys use? What do these aesthetics guys use? Zyzz, John Skywalker, Jeff Seid. All right, well, you know what? They say what they use, like John Skywalker. He's these guys are all models. These guys are all models that a lot of young guys, they really look up to these guys. And you know what? They got some inspiring traits, these guys have got some charismatic traits. Zyzz went to Thailand and died in Pattaya, a city known for it's like Las Vegas if there was no rules in Las Vegas. If you had all the people in Las Vegas who were there to do what they were doing, but there were no rules. That's what Pattaya is like. So that's where Zyzz died. And but anyways, he was like the first guy who inspired all these other guys now who do this thing where they like this skinny look, or it's not really a skinny look, but it's a lean, slender, muscular look. It's a very athletic look, I guess you could say. It's an athletic, muscular look, like a muscular athlete, kind of like an extra dense athlete, or they don't look that much different than I guess I see a cornerback in the NFL look or something like that, or maybe I don't think they get as big as running backs in the NFL. Maybe NBA basketball players, but shrunk down. Not quite as tall as an NBA basketball player. Well, some of them are, but anyways, David Lade, he's another one of these models that is really popular among these young guys. And these guys, what they use is they use like a testosterone enanthate or a testosterone propionate, and the Trenbolone enanthate or the Trenbolone acetate. And they do these things at basically 300 to 400 milligrams, up to 500 milligrams or so of each of these hormones per week. And some of them also use human growth hormone, and some of them don't. Like 2 to 4 IUs, 5 IUs of growth hormone per day, pharmaceutical grade growth hormone per day. And you understand it has to be pharmaceutical grade growth hormone or it doesn't count. because generic is no good. It's not the same thing. So they use that. Some of them use a little bit of metformin too. So, 1,000 milligrams per day of metformin up to 2,500 milligrams or so per day of metformin if they're eating a lot of junk food. But, those are the kinds of dosages that these guys are running. And some of them increase the Trenbolone sometimes too, up to like 700 milligrams or so. And some of these guys run Anavar too. Sometimes they'll run, they could be running Anavar instead of Trenbolone at sometimes. Other guys, like Callum Von Moger, appears to be using Primobolan and Equipoise, Baldinon. These are just my takes, looking at these guys, hearing about some of the cycles that they run, talking with some of the people that train with them, and also using my eyes to discern. Using my eyes to discern, which is, for you natural guys, it'll be like taking a bite of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil when you get on steroids for the first time. Because right now you're innocent and you don't know what steroids look like, so you're not really able to discern them. You haven't taken a bite from the fruit of the tree of knowledge and good and evil yet, okay? But after that first injection, no, I'm kidding. But after, that first Dbol tablet or first Tren injection, yes, or first Superdrol tablet or first Anadrol tablet, it takes a few days to kick in. But after the first week of doing that, those really strong sledgehammer type drugs for bodybuilding, you will know. You will have taken a bite from the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And you will know what steroids look like. And as you become more and more experienced, you will gain a better and better eye of being able to know what the effects of certain steroids are and what certain steroids and performance-enhancing drugs look like when other people are using them. Or the shakiness in my voice right now because of the Clenbuterol that I'm on. Next question. Jacksino asks, he asked, can you list some cycles for fitness models? All right, we got that one. We got that one down. He also asks, is there a difference between building muscles with Testin Deca or Testin Anavar or Testin other steroids? Muscle will grow the same or not? So I think he's talking about the quality. And so what you want to be doing is you want to be building up muscle fiber tissue, okay, over time. And this is how you get bigger and bigger and bigger over time, is you got to be making progress in the gym. So if those steroids that you just now mentioned allow you to make progress in the gym, whichever of those steroids, the Testin Deca or the Testin Anavar or the Testin other steroid, whatever ones allow you to make the most progress in the gym over time, steadily, and break through plateaus, will be the one that builds the most solid quality muscle fiber tissue over time, okay? So it's like I said earlier in the podcast, is that, these big guys, the really big guys, you may not see them always training with heavy weights, but I'm telling you, they can lift those heavy weights if they want to, okay? Like, they can. And if you get big like that, you are strong as fuck, okay? Like, powerlifters think this is pretty strong, okay? So there's a video of Kai Green, IFBB bodybuilder, doing like 10 to 12 reps on the incline bench press with 5 plates on each side, and like powering those reps out full full range of motion reps, touching his chest on the incline bench press, barbell bench press. So there's a video of that. And so people, that is strong as shit. Okay. And most bodybuilders aren't that strong. Okay. That's strong as hell. Insanity. But, they are strong. Most IFBB pro bodybuilders can do 4 plates. Not all of them on a bench press, but most can, okay? There's exceptions. Some are weaker, but none of them are that weak. Most of them are pretty fucking strong. So understand that, and understand that when you're in the gym and you're training, you want to be choosing the steroids that make you be able to, if you don't lift heavy weights, you can still progress in other ways, like clustering your sets closer together with less rest periods, but using heavy, medium weights for a long time. So like, say you were doing the dumbbell bench press and you were doing 10 reps with 100-pound dumbbells each hand. And if you can now, or maybe only 80 pounds, because maybe lifting lighter, okay? Lifting lighter. And 80 pounds each hand. And now, at one point you can do 5 sets of 10 reps in 10 minutes, So that would be on an average 1 set every 2 minutes, including doing the set for that time. 5 times for 10 minutes. Now, what if you get down to doing those 5 sets in 5 minutes? Okay, that's a huge stimulus. Being able to complete all 5 sets in 5 minutes, that's a huge increase in stimulus, okay? And so that is one way that you can get bigger without increasing the weights lifted. And that's one way that by clustering those sets together like that you can utilize those lower weights to gain bigger muscles, okay? But that still does build very strong muscles at the same time. It's just that those guys they're not doing it. They're just not performing those to prevent injury. But they could if they wanted to. But they might get injured too. And they know that. But they do get very strong lifting that way. All right. So next question. And last one on that is just use the steroids. That was one way to get bigger. That was one way to get bigger without using heavier weights. And the moral of that whole thing was to use the steroids that make you be able to progress in the gym. And whatever progression that you're using, whatever kind of overload that you're using or making progress in the gym, whatever gauge that you're using of that, you need to be using the performance-enhancing drugs and steroids that make you be able to do that better over time. That's how you're going to make continued steady progress in bodybuilding. So on to the next question. Ron asks, hey Dan, I know people are able to run high doses of DECA-only cycles, but was wondering, can people stack SARMs like LGD 4033, S4, RAD 140 on a DECA-only cycle, or will they run into problems? I wouldn't see a problem with that, because the reason why people run into problems on DECA-only cycles is because they use testosterone with it, and there's some kind of weird, some people don't have problems, but most people do have sexual dysfunction problems when they run testosterone and DECA together, but then most people do not when they run DECA with no testosterone, okay? So he's wondering, is there going to be problems if he adds SARMs? Well, the reason why the testosterone creates the problem with the DECA is it has some kind of weird synergy. And this weird synergy with the DECA produces all kinds of weird receptor stimulation with the progesterone and the prolactin receptors, and shuts your sexual function and your sex drive off and your sexual ability off. So really makes the dick not get hard. And so if you don't have testosterone in there, this doesn't happen. So like Dbol works with DECA, with no testosterone, or like Winstrol, or Primobolan, or lots of different hormones. Lots of different hormones work, but just the combination of testosterone and nandrolone, it's no good. So, yeah, you can use SARMs with it. They're not going to be creating any female hormones like testosterone will that interact with the DECA and make a freaking nightmare. Freaking shit show. Female hormone stimulation. Nightmare. Next question is from Jeff. Is T2 a good diet supplement? This is a good question. So I've seen this sold as a dietary supplement, and I was seeing that and I was like, oh, interesting. They're selling a thyroid hormone in a dietary supplement, and I looked into it a bit, and it actually is an active thyroid hormone. The testing that has been done on it has shown that, there's T3, that's the natural active thyroid hormone, and then T2 is another thyroid hormone that is less produced. It's not one of the primary thyroid hormones that's produced. T4 is a prohormone to thyroid hormone, and T4 is an effective thyroid hormone for increasing your metabolic rate. And so T2, when taken at high dosages, so whatever that manufacturer's thing is, like, on the supplement label, you'd probably have to take that much, the maximum, or double. This is not advice. It was a joke, dude. It was a joke. I'm not glorifying any of this content. This is not glorification. I'm just telling the way that it would be most effective, but not encouraging you to do that. Just saying the facts, stating reality. Yeah, if you take that, it does speed up your metabolism. There's been testing done on it, and yes, it does in humans speed up their metabolism. It's an active thyroid hormone. It doesn't turn into any other thyroid hormones in the body, but when that T2 thyroid hormone is in your body, you're going to be hotter, and you're going to be burning more energy. And also, one of the main problems with dieting that really screws dieting up is that in a lot of people that don't have really high thyroid levels, when they start to diet, their thyroid levels react really hard and slow the metabolism right down as they try to diet. And a lot of people's thyroids are really effective at doing this. And so it's counteracting. And so sometimes you'll feel this confusion, feeling oh, I need to eat carbs. And then you'll eat carbs and your thyroid will speed back up and you'll be like, whoa, my body is burning so much hotter again. And, you're hotter after eating and you have so much more energy for a little while again. And then you'll notice, you drop out carbs and it'll be whoa, I'm burning fat like crazy. But then if you keep the carbs out for another week or so, then it can kind of slow to more of a grinding, more of a grind, and it's not working so well anymore. Or just dieting in general, even if you don't drop out the carbs, just dieting in general. But carbs generally is the antidote for this effect. And so that's why people they say I like a carb cycling diet, or they say, I like some days, with low carb or no carbs, or some meals even with no carbs, because of the thyroid hormone thing. So the reason why people take thyroid hormone usually when dieting is to prevent this from happening. So then you don't have to do this yo-yo thing, because it's pretty uncomfortable going from not eating carbs to going to eating carbs, or, even doing cheat days. Once you're in dieting mode and you're not eating, the wrong foods or the wrong amounts of foods, you just want to stay in that lane and you don't want to stop. Doing cheat days and stuff like that, it helps maintain your metabolism and keep the progress going. And if you're not using thyroid hormone, it's basically necessary to do that. But that's a major inconvenience, having to do that. I'd rather just stay in the lane and just keep on doing the diet and eating the diet foods until you're lean, and keep on having that fast burning metabolism going the whole time. And unless you're someone that's born with a super high thyroid levels, That tends to be the case with, like, I would say more than like 50% of people. Like, when they start to diet, like, the thyroid slows down really fast and really reactive to prevent them from gaining weight. So that's the reason why people use thyroid hormone. Beware when you come off of thyroid hormone, there's a 2-week lag period where your thyroid, like, it's really like 7 days, but like until like the thyroid levels are completely fully back, it's kind of like 2 weeks. But especially during that first 7 days, your metabolism is like super sluggish because you'll have low thyroid levels as your thyroid recovers from being shut down from the external thyroid replacement therapy that you're giving yourself. And you'll think like, oh, I need energy. And so you'll like eat more like food, especially like sugary food. And oh my God, you'll have no thyroid hormone levels and it'll just all go to fat. And so if you let that happen, if you eat like not eating a low carb diet when you go off of thyroid hormone, you will put on fat like crazy the first 7 to 14 days after you come off. There is a harsh rebound on the stuff. All right, next question. Woo Dog. Little history. Woo Dog asks, little history. I'm a disabled vet with major atrophy in my legs. I'm trying to do a cycle to increase strength and help reduce my pain levels. The doctor at the VA just shove opiates at me. I just want to regain as much strength and mobility as possible, so I keep up with my kids. Okay. So you want to do a cycle, you have pain and atrophy in your legs, and you need strength and mobility to do your lifestyle, to play with your kids, and you want to do a cycle. Okay, so DECA is the one that the doctors actually prescribe for joint pain. So DECA and human growth hormone. I'm not a doctor, and this is not medical advice. This is just relaying me this is me relaying you information, but not medical advice. Okay, talk to your doctor. Talk to your doctor. But testosterone and DECA, hormone replacement therapy, typically in dosages of 1 or 2 cc's of each per week. Typically. Now we're talking bodybuilding. Forget that anything was said about doctors, okay? We're just going to talk about bodybuilding. 1 or 2 cc's of DECA per week. 1 or 2 cc's of testosterone per week. 2 to 4 IUs of human growth hormone per day. And that will get you nice and strong and healthy. Mainly, yes, your joints will be in a maximum healing environment and promoting a maximum lubrication of the joints and also buildup of strength of bones, tendons, and ligaments. And then if you're still having problems with pain, which I think it will help you to reduce pain, also make sure to do that soft tissue work, like rolling on balls. What I do is I roll on a croquet ball every day. Every single day. I have this hard as fuck croquet ball. And I put that shit right under my back, or right under my leg, or right under the scar even, to get that scar tissue out from under my freaking leg surgery. That huge freaking scar on my leg from that botched injection. And roll around. I roll around with all my body weight on top of that ball. And it's like a deep tissue massage, and it breaks up all the adhesions that form. Because a bunch of adhesions form and scar tissue form from weightlifting or doing injections of anabolic steroids into the muscles, or from injuries or strains from weightlifting, strains in the gym, and from just the building muscle process. There's scar tissue that forms and adhesions that form between the muscles, And these things cause major pain and cause pressure on nerves that are running inside the muscles. And you got to do deep tissue massage. You got to either do this kind of thing, rolling on a hard ball or something like that. You put it, like if you got stuff in your back, you put it under your back, and then you lift yourself up on your feet, and then you lie. You're like a freaking tripod with like one part, your back, your upper back is on the ball, and then you got, your feet on the ground, and then your ass is lifted up so that all your weight is put into that tripod, and it goes right down into that ball and up your back, and it gives you a deep tissue massage. And you got to do that, or you got to go get massages, or you got to get somebody to be walking on you, walking on your back, walking on your legs. You got to be doing something, okay? Because this is a real thing, and all athletes have to deal with this. So if you're an amateur athlete, somebody in the gym, a bodybuilder, you know what? Real athletes do this kind of soft tissue work. And, if you consider yourself a real athlete, you got to be doing it too, or else you're going to be in a lot of pain. So I advise doing this for you guys that are in pain. Soft tissue work, okay? Another really valuable tool for doing soft tissue work is a Theracane. Or you see those guns. Do you see those like hammer guns that are being advertised recently? Those are good too. Where it pounds the spot, it's to hammer out muscle bruises. There's been quite a bit of advertising for those recently. I've seen them like as a trending item on the market. And yeah, that's a good one. All right, next question. Nubius guy says, how can I boost my testosterone levels? All right, best way to boost your testosterone levels, that is really going to boost your testosterone levels, is Clomid, Nolvadex, or HCG, okay? So, Clomid at 50 to 100 milligrams per day. Nolvadex at 25 to 40 to 60 milligrams per day. HCG, which is the least desirable one to do this, okay? If you're just trying to boost your testosterone levels, this is the least desirable, because the other ones don't have a come down, and this one does, okay? It has a withdrawal period if you just go off of it after using it at high dosages. And HCG would be at 3,000 IUs per week, okay? Injected 3 times into the muscle with an insulin syringe. So those are just the facts. The most desirable one out of those 3 is Nolvadex, 40 to 60 milligrams per day for raising your testosterone to like 2 or 3 times their natural levels. And there's not really a come down. There isn't a come down at all, actually. And yeah, that's just the straight up facts about the drugs. There may be some kind of other considerations. People might say like, oh, it lowers IGF-1 or something. Well, you just asked me how to boost testosterone, so I told you how to boost testosterone. Okay? And let me tell you one other thing. And this is I'm saying it nicely. If I sounded a little bit serious there, I am serious, but at the same time, I'm nice serious. So no one ever got big using Nolvadex, okay? So if you're trying to use freaking Nolvadex to boost your testosterone and turn into some kind of juiced up steroid dude, then sorry, not happening. So if you just want to boost your testosterone, and get your testosterone numbers way up, use the Nolvadex. But if you're trying to use this as a performance enhancing drug, you're going to be disappointed.
Taroxel asks,
how do you decide if you should use steroids? All right. This is totally a personal decision. First, never break the law in your country. Never break the law. And never do anything illegal. And also tell your lawmakers not to make any illegal laws, like making female anabolic, estrogenic, progestagenic steroids. Not very anabolic, though. In birth control. legal and free, paid for by the government, and then making male hormones
an illegal drug.
So, ask your politicians why they made that illegal law, please. If that's the case in your country. But if we're talking about how to decide to use steroids, is you got to say this. Be realistic. You know with your gut what you have to do. If you look around and use your eyes, and your goals are, you need to be a bodybuilder for some reason, or you need to be a professional athlete for some reason, or you need to be doing something where, this is required. Because I don't recommend these for recreation or messing around. I just don't. I don't think it's good for that. I only think it's good for people who, they pretty much know, like, before even they start using them, like, I'm going to need to use these. Like, this is something I'm going to need to use, or it's something I'm going to have to use, I have, because, to be honest, before you use them, it's not really, like, an attractive thing to do, because it's mostly socially taboo, and it's, like, I think it has something to do with, like, when you're a man, you want everything to be, like, all you. Like, you want everything to be all you. And that's, part of that is a macho thing. And then the steroids give a more macho look. So it's kind of, it seems a bit incongruent with what you're trying to do. Seems a bit incongruent with what you're trying to do. So I think that's the reason for the social stigma, like the deep psychological reason for the social stigma, or the feeling like I want it to be all me, like I want to be natural. But when you just gotta know what your goals are and what is necessary for you to have happen in your life, though. Okay? And that's one of the reasons why you should definitely not be a teenager. You should definitely be an adult, over 18 at the absolute minimum, and under 21 at the minimum. Or, over 21 at the minimum. And then, 25, 24 or so, 23 and up, do what you want. But you gotta know, what are these going to be necessary, and you got to be realistic and know what you want in your life, and then you gotta face the facts and don't try to hide from reality, because deep down, like in your gut, you know what you have to do. Like, I'm dead serious. Like, just don't hide from it, and don't like try and like rationalize anything. Like all the rationalizing that you've been doing and feeling like, oh my God, like I can't decide. And, you stop and ask yourself, like, why am I doing this? And then you just be honest with yourself for a second, and you just say, like, what is it that I need to do with my life? And are these things going to be necessary or not? And in your gut whether that's true or not. It's very clear to you. It's very clear to everyone. It's very clear to every one of us that have ever made the decision to do this and then continued doing it. There's this point, okay? And that's where you decide, and you make a decision, yes or no. And, it's not something that you should be messing around with if, you're not able to ever come around to that kind of a decision. Because it's a hassle. It's a hassle. It's putting a hassle into your life.
If you would like your questions to be answered on the Steroids podcast, go to steroidspodcast.com and leave a comment with your questions, or email or private message steroidspodcast@gmail.com or steroidspodcast on Instagram. Until next time.